Today we are solving 6.4, doing compound inequalities. So what is a compound inequality? Simply means, just like a compound sentence joins two sentences, like with the word and, or but, or something like that. A compound inequality joins two inequalities. So instead of just graphing like x is less than negative 5, greater than negative 5 would be like an open circle pointing to the right, and then a separate one with like 0, here's negative 1, positive 1, with a closed circle pointing to the left. Instead of doing those separate, we can graph them together as two inequalities. So what we did is we joined those two together. So if we wrote them next to each other, for example, with the x in the middle, we can have x is less than or equal to 0, but we would need to flip this one around so that we can join the two x's and write it as one big inequality. So if I flip that around, flip this one around, we will have negative 5, the symbol, and x. So instead of writing them separately, we just combine these two letters together and we write negative 5 is less than x is less than or equal to 0. And we write it as one big inequality. So if you see it written like this, we have a negative 5 and 0 on our number line with the arrows pointing together. Open circle here, closed circle here, and one arrow pointing this way and the other together. Just going to erase so you can see open to the left, closed, and that means our answers are anywhere between negative 5 and 0. That's what we call an and statement because the arrows are pointing together to the middle. Our answers are between this and that. The other type of equation we can write is an or statement, meaning we have one side or the other side. And that's why our arrows are going to be pointing apart, because it's an or. It's not between two things. It's one side or the other side. So here, if we have 23, this would be an open circle pointing to the right. Here we could have 19, open circle pointing to the left. Instead of graphing them separately, we can simply graph them on one line, one number line. 19, 23, this one's an open circle pointing left, and this one's an open circle pointing to the right. So if I were to read this as a sentence, I would say that x is less than 19 or x is greater than 23. Our answers are here or here, but not in the middle. All right, next we're going to write an inequality that is represented by the graph. I'm just going to use x to represent my answers. My answers are between negative 2 and 3. That one was filled in. So our arrows are pointing this direction. So I'm going to write one inequality for each dot. X is what at negative 2? Well, everything to the right, which is greater than negative 2. I know it's to the right because my arrow is pointing to the right, greater than. And we have over here, x is what then 3? Well, to the left, we have like an L, less than 3. But it's a filled in circle, so we always put the equal to there as well. I would accept this as an answer if you wrote x is greater than negative 2 and x is less than or equal to 3. However, this is the type when we have the word and that we can combine them together. So we can flip-flop this around, always the one that's the smaller number, negative 2, flip your symbol, and x, and we can now combine these two where the x's join. So it would be written as negative 2 is less than x is less than or equal to 3. I would accept that, or written like this as well. This one, when we have the or statement, I know it's or because our answers are one side or the other side. I'm going to write an inequality for each side. X is like an L less than 0, or x is greater than or equal to 2. because our numbers are greater than 2 or exactly at 2. We can't combine these together because it's not a combined and statement. It's one side or the other side. Keep them separate. Alright, on to the back side. Sketch a graph of the inequality. We need to make sure we have two inequalities that we can solve, and we do. We don't need to rewrite either of them. So I'm going to put 8 on the left side because it's a smaller number, and 15 on the right side. You do not need to number all of the lines. So 8 here is going to be an open circle pointing like an L to the left. And then at 15, also an open circle but pointing to the right. Reminder that we will never have both of our arrows pointing in the same direction. They will always be either apart or together. And or. Alright, this second one we have to split up. If you want to, it helps to circle the x with both, so we can write them as separate inequalities. The one on the right is always easier to write because it's ready to go for you. But the other one, we have x less than -4, but we can't graph that like that, so we need to flip it around. X, flip the symbol, and -4. Now we can graph both down here. So -4 is smaller, 2 is greater. At -4, open circle pointing to the right. And at 2, also an open circle, but pointing to the left. So our answers are between -4 and 2. Notice the word and is there. Between here and here. Alright. Next, solve the inequality and graph your solution. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky. We are not splitting this up right away. Normally when we solve an inequality, we draw our line down. We have two inequality symbols, so we just need to draw two lines. So we need to get x by itself in the middle. So we need to get rid of this 3. So I'm going to subtract 3. But if I subtract 3 from the middle, I need to subtract 3 from both sides as well. Subtract 3, subtract 3. So those eliminate, and I have x. Here, -4, -3, same sign, add and keep, that's -7. And here, 11 minus 3, 11, 10, 9, 8. Now we have two inequalities. This one and this one. So we have x is less than 8. And over here, x is less than -7. It's actually greater than, because that one's ready to graph. This one we need to flip-flop. Letter on the left. Symbol flips. Now we can graph it on the number line. And notice there isn't a number line here. You need to just simply draw your own. -7 is the smaller number. 8 is the bigger number. These are both open circles because there's no equal to. At -7 we're going to the right, and at 8 we're pointing to the left. Last set of questions here. This is just two inequalities. It says 2x plus 3 is less than 9, or, meaning separate equation now, 3x minus 6 is greater than 12. So I'm going to solve this one first. Just a regular inequality, subtract 3. Trying to go quick just because my iPad's going to die here, but feel free to pause it if you need to. And the opposite of multiplying by 2 is divide by 2. We did not divide by a negative, so our symbol does not flip. And over here, same thing, solve the equation at 6. We have 3x is greater than now 18. And then divide by 3. X is greater than 18 divided by 3 is 6. So 3 is the smaller number, 6 is greater. Because there's no equal to, it's an open circle. We're just less than 3, like an L to the left. And here, greater than 6, open circle to the right. So you can tell this is an or statement, one side or the other side. So when you see the or, you already know your graph should look like this. If you see it written as one big inequality, you know your arrows should be pointing together. Your homework is just like this. The first two you're writing inequalities, and then the rest you are solving